Hey, Dowell. Heard a lot about Missouri's offensive stars going into this week. What have you seen from their defense?
Yeah, I mean, it's extremely well coached team. Starting with Coach Drinkwitz does a great job on both sides of the ball and has for a long time. Good recruiter. He's stacked really good recruiting classes, and this will be it's a tough front to get ready for. They've had success against South Carolina in the past. Obviously, we had a couple battles with them when I was at Arkansas, and so we're gonna have our hands full this week. It's a good football team. We're looking forward to the challenge.
With Tree stepping in at halftime at left tackle, what did you see from him? And I guess what is that like seeing a guy who hasn't played all year and just comes in a moment like that and helps the offense kind of get it going in a big second half?
Yeah, he played for us last year. I think starting as the Georgia and played really well against those guys last year. So he's a guy that has some experience, and as we're finding out with all these young kids, the only way to improve is to go out there and get experience. So he went out there and did his job just like he did last year for us against Georgia, and he's been in the program. He's had a couple off seasons now, so with him out there, we expect him to go out there and play well and perform to the best of his abilities. Every time that happens, it is really cool to see those guys when they're ready for their moment. And if you're not, then you're gonna get passed up. And it's give a lot of credit to the kid because he's done the things right to go out and play well and help this team.
Hey, Dell, it seems like you guys have been able to run the football a lot better lately. What do you feel like you would attribute to that success you guys have had in the run game?
Well, I would say that we've run the ball the way we've needed to the last 2 or 3 weeks to win some games, and it's not just the offensive line. Obviously, they're doing a really good job. It's the wide receivers blocking. It's Rocket being healthy. It's Lenore's doing his part in the QB run game. It's everyone. It takes 11 guys to gain 4 yards on a run. I always joke with the offense. I'm like, that's what's hard about playing consistent offensive football. It takes 11 guys to get 4 yards. It takes one jerk on defense to make a tackle and blow up a play and get a TFL. But but it goes back to, and I think someone showed me the clip of Simon talking after the game. But it does come back to practice. And you're still that guys are starting to pay attention when they start like quoting what you guys keep preaching, and it's the way we practice. And it's a bunch of young guys that are playing together for the first time, a lot of new faces that are starting to gel and come together and starting to know what the expectations are, to know what it's supposed to look like, to get to play together and see the game through one set of eyes, not just the offensive line, but the quarterback, the tight ends, the running backs. Because Josh Simon, Mike Smith, and Brady are a big part of that as well as running the football.
Did you hear how Simon described how open he was the other night?
I didn't. I just saw the one part about talking about practice.
Oh,
I think
okay.
Dante or some one of those guys showed it to me. How what did he say?
I don't know if I can repeat it.
He didn't curse, did he?
No. He said he was running butt naked open.
That's Josh. Now you guys got to look a little glimpse of what we deal with.
Yeah. No, these last few games with him and Lenore in postgame, he's been really funny.
Yeah, I'm going to have to – I try to stay away from that's why I'm nice to you guys because I don't really pay attention to what you guys say. I try to stay away from it, but with those two together, I might have to start, like, watching the highlights on Twitter or something.
Yeah, no, it's pretty good.
Yeah, those two fun kids.
with Rocket, seems like his last 2 games are stat lines like we would have seen from 2022. Is he back to that form?
Yeah, I wouldn't say he lost that form. He's just healthy. You go back and you look at some of that LSU stuff. Was a good first half of football with him and Lenore's healthy together out there, and just him. The bye week helped, and just getting him back healthy, and like Big Back's good in November. Like that was who he was in Arkansas in 21 and 22. Like we rode him to 9 wins and a victory over Texas and beat Penn State in the Outback Bowl, and we rode the Big Back. And these guys that play, the more carries he has, the longer he plays, he becomes stronger, and he's hard to tackle. So in November, he's gonna be big for us. He's gonna be huge. He's been huge the last 2 weeks, and we need his best game this week because he's a good player and he's big and he's physical. And everyone says, like, man, I get asked a question a lot about like toughness, and like it feels like a different group. Well, you talk about the 2 guys you just talked about in the interview, Josh Simon breaking tackles. Rocket is a tough guy. He breaks tackles. He's physical. And then you add Lenore's game into breaking tackles and how he's done. Like the physicality of the offense really runs through those 3 people. And you throw Torselli in there, you got guys that play the right way and compete hard. So Rocket's a big part of the added toughness, how we've gotten better in the run game. And we're going to need his best this week. We're playing a really good defense.
You talked after the bye week that those 10 days were about trying to figure out what you guys do well. there were only like 4 wide receivers that played 2 weeks ago. I think only 4 or 5 that played last week. Is that part of what you were talking about? Just kind of consolidating and figuring out what wide receivers are, you trust and putting them out there more?
Yeah, when we trust them all. They all have individual strengths and weaknesses, and it's really they choose the depth chart on how they practice, and it's coming down like the standard of like, hey, when you got to play smart, clean football in November, it's really in November like you want to be a kick-ass football team, you got to figure out ways not to kick your own ass. And sorry for my language on that one, but like. Those guys set the depth chart and how they practice. And there's also becomes a standard of practice matters, and the way you practice will be rewarded. And if you don't play to that standard, you don't practice that standard, then reps get taken. The best coach, the most powerful tool that we have as a coach is the bench and competition. So you keep bringing in players, and they keep competing, and like whoever practices the best or has got the hot hands is going to play.
Not trying to rain on Josh Simon's parade here, but week 2, Mazio Bennett described himself as butt naked open as well. So I don't know if he watches Mazio's press conferences, but
maybe this is a theme that I don't know about that I need to get to the bottom to. Yeah,
something like that. Regardless, unrelated. What's just the biggest kind of area of growth that you've seen Lenoris have, either this season or the last couple weeks, and where do you want to see him continue to grow in the next 3 games?
Yeah, he was a guy, and I've said it in front of you guys a million times since I knew the expectations, what they were coming this season for the kid from the outside. It doesn't happen like that. You got to play, and the only way to get better is to play. So for him, he needed to go out there and play, and each week he plays, he gets better because he's smart. A smart player can correct his mistakes. The smart player doesn't make the same mistakes twice. He doesn't have a big Rolodex of plays and so you don't have a lot to recall. Like Coach Spence, like he'd be like, hey, Iowa State did this to us 2 years ago, da-da-da-da-da. Well, Lenoris is banking reps every day, every play at practice. What makes it work for him is he's so mature for his age. Like a lot of kids, they're kids. He's a redshirt freshman. He shouldn't be playing. He shouldn't be. So for him is like filing those reps away and banking reps and not making the same mistake twice. He's done a really good job to this point, and I expect him to be playing the way he is. I couldn't be more proud of him for being where he's at, but he's just getting started, and we knew that. We knew we had a really talented player that needed some time to grow and to succeed and deal with adversity and deal with prosperity and all those things, and be able to say, hey, like now all of a sudden I'm getting some pats on the back like when I was the backup last year, because everyone loves the backup quarterback, and all of a sudden you play and it's like, oh wow, it's hard, and you feel the pressures of trying to do well for your teammates and trying to play up to your own standard, to your coach's standard. So Lenoris is right where he needs to be, and that's keep getting better, staying focused at the task at hand on this game. And the only thing we want to see from him is like you're judged as a quarterback on how many times can you get the team in the end zone. And there's been some Superman plays, and people call him Houdini about people like, hey, how's Houdini, all this other stuff. He's got to keep taking care of the ball and making good decisions, and know when the journey's over, and do all those things that we talked about when it wasn't the most pretty thing in the world, and we were struggling to get through some of these hard times. But you don't get through things, you grow through them, and he had to grow through these things, and so that's why I'm proud of him.
Nick Corvo's played a lot here recently and had a few big catches in that game against Vanderbilt. How would you evaluate his recent performances and how he's kind of continued to progress here?
Yeah, I love the way he practices. That's why he's playing more. I think that's where he's starting to, you're talking about a guy now that, talking about expectations again from the outside part, not from us. They played defensive end and tight end in high school, and we're trying to train him to be a wide receiver. And last year he got thrown in the fire and got to learn through just trial and error, get out there and go play. He's now starting to figure out some of the intricacies of playing wide receiver. And it's not just, hey, go out there and run fast and you're bigger and faster and stronger than everyone. It's how do I drop my weight? How do I get in and out of these cuts? There's 4 or 5 different break points that you have to have. So for him practicing the right way and showing improvement builds confidence in the coaching staff, Coach Furry, myself, but the quarterbacks more importantly. So now when the quarterback starts to trust you, we can play you more because there's certain progressions where the ball's going to go to you. And if the quarterback doesn't believe that you're going to be where you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be there, it's hard for us to put you out there. So it goes back to like the earlier comment about practice. He's practiced the right way. He's learning how to run fast all the time. His ball skills are improving. So I'm happy where he's at. He's still got a lot of work to do, but he is progressing the way that we hope he would.
you talked about the offensive guys finally gelling and coming together, which I assume you'd probably want to say before like November. Is when you look back, is there something you would change, or is it, hey, the growing pains of a young team, and thank goodness they figured it out?
You got to play. And we don't get preseason games. So they got to go play together. It's the only way to fix it. It's the only way to do it is you practice the right way, and practice execution becomes game day reality, just like Josh said. And so for us, it was easy for us to stay process oriented because everyone else wants to look at stat lines and scores and all that other crap. Like I learned this from Matt Hassel back in 2011. He just came from Seattle. He said you gotta win as you build. You gotta win as you build. Sometimes you gotta find an ugly way to squeak a win out against a good team on the road in the SEC. And that, to this point, to make us relevant in November, that's what we've been able to do. And that's the only thing that matters. We're not in the style points. We're in the wins. So we've been able to do that. And then it kind of started, we kind of started figuring out LSU in the first half, and we couldn't close the game out. And you go to Alabama and go play a really, really freaking talented team, and you see how they're just getting better every week, too. And Kane Womack's such a good defensive coach. But we kind of figured out that we had some moments of like, hey, wow, we could be pretty good. Then we go to Oklahoma, and we had the Ole Miss game, and didn't play the way we need to, and you go to Oklahoma and you win a game on the road versus a really good defense that continues to play well defensively, and you just find a way to win. And then all of a sudden, like, as you start to build confidence, as you start to find ways to win, you start to build confidence, and that's what we've been able to do the last 2 weeks. Now, all that doesn't mean anything if we don't play well this week. We got a huge task and a good defense that's got a really good record. So the message last week was like, hey, great win against Texas A&M, guys, but none of it matters if you don't beat Vanderbilt. And the same message this week, like, you guys are getting better, and we're getting better, and that's the most important thing is control what you can control and get better, but it's another huge SEC game. So we got to go do it again.
Just to go back on the question about Nick Harbor and the progress that he's obviously made, do you worry that progress he'll lose some of that progress because he's going to go to track at some point in the spring, and you won't have him for that full time to continue that development, or is there obviously you got some kind of plan in place to try to take him to that next level?
Yes, sir. I understand the question. I'm gonna go biblical right here, where there's enough worries for tomorrow. So like right now, I'm worried about this week with him, and it's not coach talk. It's nothing more than like, we have a huge challenge this week, and I'm really excited about where Nick's at. I've seen the improvement. The only way to get better at football is to be around football and do it. And I think he knows that. I think he sees that, and I think he's built his own confidence by. You guys have heard me say this before. Like the only way you get better, and the only way to have confidence, it comes from demonstrated ability. You got to do it at practice. You got to go do it on the game. I think he sees his improvement. I think he's very serious about football. I think he had a good practice today, and only thing I'm worried about is make sure he practices well tomorrow in the red zone and being ready to play on Saturday. We'll talk about the track stuff in the season. I appreciate the question. I understand the question. It's a good question. Thanks, Coach. Appreciate you guys.